They've all said quite clearly that the battle is against Islamic extremism. Why is that so hard to say?
Well, it's not hard to say, but it's not the only kind of extremism we face. Much of it Islamic, you're absolutely right, but some of it not. So we're going to focus on all the different kinds of extremism with a heavy focus on people who do this in the name of Islam.
That was Marie Harf on the Kelly File just a couple of days ago, repeating an argument that has been heard repeatedly from the Obama administration. Not all extremism is Islamic, and any violence perpetuated by those who call themselves Muslims is just a twisted version of a peaceful faith, is basically the argument, even if they claim that their murders are, quote, avenging the Prophet Muhammad, which we saw clearly in that horrific tape from Paris. Dr. Qanta Ahmed joins me now. She is Muslim and the author of In the Land of Invisible Women, a book on what life is like for women in Muslim-majority countries. Doctor, thank you so much for being here. What's your reaction when you hear those men on the street?
You know, both segments are very distressing. One, of course, of the jihadists who are executing somebody in the name of my prophet, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, but also the absolute tongue-tied nature of U.S. discourse about this problem. And I think I can explain that for us. I would use the word Islamist to describe all these acts. Islam, I understand and agree with the administration, does not advocate this kind of behavior that we've seen in France. But Islamism, which borrows and steals metaphors, language, image from my religion and is explicitly totalitarian, does advocate exactly the acts that we've seen in France. In my opinion, Islamist actors, while as a mainstream Muslim do not represent my beliefs, claim to act in what they believe is a religion. This is actually a politicized totalitarian ideology. The American administration's discomfort is they do not want to use the word Islam or Islamic, and I understand that, I empathize with it. But this radicalization or totalitarian ideology is completely derived and distorted out of our beliefs. So you can say it is separate, but it is not without a relationship. The two are together, but interrelated and apart. We're living in very complicated times, and there are no simple answers for these complex questions. But seeing the White House representative not being able to say, or other deputy spokespersons not being able to say this, makes me feel that we can't even name the beast that we're facing.
You know, when you listen to what el-Sisi has said in Egypt, where he talks about how outraged he is about the destructive nature of what's going on in the name of Islam, and he calls it out very clearly. I was also watching the mayor of Rotterdam in the Netherlands, who is Muslim, and he used some very strong language to talk about, he said, you know, if you're not happy with freedom, then you need to go find another country. He was very outraged, and they're so clear in how they're looking at it and what they're saying to people who are of the Muslim faith who are peaceful, that they need to react and that they need to respond. You know, what's your take on that?
I'm so glad that you've brought that up, and I think President Sisi's invocation to the religious scholars at Al-Azhar was to extract this ideology that has contaminated Islam, but does originate and get legitimized by clerics all over the world, and he was appealing to their authority to separate it. I've written about this in tomorrow morning's Spectator in an article called Let There Be Light. It's time we examined the relationship of this ideology to Islam, and that examination is something that we are shying away from in the United States because of our administration's lead.
What about I questioned the State Department spokeswoman on the thread that exists between all of these horrific acts. When you stack them up, when you look at Hamas, when you look at Boko Haram, when you look at all of these different organizations and what they have done, are we making a mistake if we don't see a thread in their motivation?
No, I think that's the correct approach, and I would disagree with Ms. Harf about that, because the common thread is not the nationality or the geography or even the method of assault on secular pluralistic values. It is the ideology, which is Islamism. And very important for our viewers to understand, Islamism can be violent, exactly as we've seen. Charlie Hebdo, the attack there, was the most explicit war on secular values we have seen to date. It's actually attacking the core of freedom of speech, freedom of self-expression, and personal identity. Boko Haram is going about in other jihadist acts, but the ideology they've inspired is very similar and has to be named if we are going to approach it.
Dr. Ahmed, thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
being
Martha.
here, and we'll look for your article as it comes out. It's good to speak with you. We need to have a lot more of this conversation.
Thank you for having this very difficult and radioactive discussion that most people don't want to approach.
Thank you. Good to have you here.